Okay, so we've taken care of the stuff before the installation, and we install Orion, looked at stuff to do immediately after the install, and we've even danced with the devil that is the DBA. So what's next?
Okay, next is the ongoing monitoring of your Orion platform and environment.
Oh, you mean the standard performance tuning and monitoring that any good DBA enjoys doing each and every day for the remainder of eternity.
Well, sure, there's that option. But I also mean looking at logs, searching for errors, and diving into the database to make certain that we aren't overloading things.
Sure, okay. That sounds great. Where do we start?
All right, well, let me show you. We're going to actually go into C, Program Data, SolarWinds, Logs, Orion. For some of you, you probably have been in here, but if not, you'll want to go to this view and make sure that the hidden items is actually checked, or you're not going to see the Program Data folder. Okay. Now, once you get there, I'm going to go into the actual logs and then Orion. And what I'm going to search for is SW debug. That's going to actually bring up the SW maintenance log. So we can actually see if it was completed, what the fragmentation was before, the tables that are coming across. And what I like to do is I scroll all the way past all that great information, and I automatically look for, has these objects been completed?
And so if there's an error would appear here.
Correct.
And you can also, so how long did this take? For example, it says 2:16, so when did this start?
2:15, that was the default.
The default was 2:15, right?
This is a very small database. Tiny.
So it took only a minute and a half and then went through all the tables. You're getting some really good information here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it'll tell you each table that it went through with the indexing size as well as how it rolls into the data and everything that comes across there. So it's pretty intense on the information that it puts out there. You can get more information if you go to the log adjuster because you can increase it verbose debug mode so that you can actually see the queries that are coming across there, things of that nature that comes across.
Awesome.
Something that I like to tell people though is before you start an upgrade is look at your maintenance logs. Make sure you don't have any known gotchas that are happening. Your maintenance is completing so that you know that your roll-ups are going through and that you don't have like a table that's just huge because it hasn't been rolled up. And then that's going to cause a problem when we're transferring data or creating new tables that have come across.
Good point.
All right, so the next thing that I like to look for is to kind of monitor the growth of things and how things are going across there. So we want to check like your table sizes and things of that nature.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go through here and we are going to grab the database manager.
All right. And is that the name of it? Database manager?
Yes.
All right.
So also, as you can see here, we have the database maintenance. Some people, just key in here since it's there, will use this before they do the upgrade. They'll run a maintenance to make sure it goes complete before they start an upgrade, and that just starts that archive that we were talking about. So you can start it during the day or however you want to do it.
Okay, so Database Manager is a tool that gets installed with Orion, and it's a way for you to kind of browse through the Orion database itself. We're going to look for things like size of the table.
Right, and so you can hit Add Default Server, and what that's going to do is use the credentials that are behind that we're using. Okay. So since they're encrypted now and things of that nature, it's just an easier way for it to come in.
All right.
So once it's there, you can see the databases that are present. We can actually right-click that, hit the database details. That's going to pull out all the tables and how, what the size are, etc.
And so a lot of this information you can also get from SQL Server Studio. It's just that not everybody might have a Management Studio installed on their server or whatever. I guess my point is, we've made it easy for you to use whatever tools at your disposal.
Right, and what you have access to, because sometimes the DBA is not going to let you to have access to the SQL Management Studio or to be on the same box. So just one of those things to try to look for. So if we go over to the tables, we can then see the index size, which is key, right? Like we can actually make sure that it's being adjusted accordingly. And then we can also see the database size also. So we can see if we need to adjust accordingly and base our tables based on traps, syslog, anything that's coming into there that could be high.
Right. Okay.
And then it tells you how much unused space is, and it tells you the row counts. So these are all information that you would get out of the SQL Management Studio.
That's right.
But it's more of a, like you said, it's a user-friendly for somebody with SolarWinds accidental DBA also, for you to come in here and to at least know that, hey, I can access it, because this also verifies your rights too.
Oh, good point.
All right. And then, so something that we can also do is check our polling settings, because when we're doing this, a lot of times people have additional polling engines. And so when you have those out there, a lot of people will let people actually discover and add new nodes in, but not explain that you may have multiple pollers. So it defaults to the main, your main Orion platform, right? So you're going to have, if they don't change it to say polar 1, polar 2, etc., then I have ran into this a lot. You will have, 3,000, 30,000 different types of nodes that are on monitor 1, and you have like nothing on your additional polling, and you find out that you have all these network discoveries that are going on, and you got to hone that in. So to check that, we can go into the web console, and we will see the settings page. Once again, you're familiar, and we will go down to the polling engines themselves under the details. What that's going to allow us to see is the information of how much is the weight of the poller. So how many elements is it actually polling? If you have SAM additional things like that on there, it's going to show you their weight count, etc. So this is going to show you the engine status of this one, and it's going to say that there's 254 elements that is on this, and it's at 3% of its SAM application poll rate. The hardware rate is 0%. Here's the key one. This is the actual polling rate for your NPM. So it's at 2% from what you can tell there. And the more that you have down here, like this is the additional poller here, it tells you the same information, how much the total element count is, as well as the elements for your volumes, what you're monitoring, and it segments them out. So I like to tell people, like, this is a good way to load balance. If you go into your managed nodes and you hit the polling engines, then if you say change polling engines, it'll give you kind of an element count there. It doesn't tell you the weight of like how much is on there, what are they being pulled for. So that's why I like to come to this page, because then I can actually see the kind of the health of that poller, because it may only have 1,000 nodes on it, but then you find out, well, it's also doing all the SAM functions on there, and so its weight would be at 99%, but this may actually be at 4% polling.
Yeah, that'd be very valuable information to have, understanding how the environment is actually collecting the data, because you want to know if you feel it might be a bottleneck. I mean, it'd be valuable to know it's the SAM polling rate that's actually higher. So this is a great page to. How often would you check this? Daily, weekly?
So I usually check this depending on how many people I have in there and who has rights to do discovery. If it's just me that has the discovery ability, then I'm the only one that's checking it, and I will check this before I do a discovery, so I know where to place and how to break up my actual discoveries themselves to bring in nodes. If there's more people that are using these, and if you've already done your initial discovery that's going out there, then I would say check it about once a month. If you're noticing issues, though, or if you are seeing that your polling engines are getting behind, this is not at 100% for your completion, and you're noticing some lag, then you need to kind of increase that. And you need to also be aware of who has discovery, because we have seen a lot of times where passwords, which I know I would hate it, but we're getting shared, and then you see accounts that are being used and they don't understand. They're just trying to hurry up and put their stuff in, and they think they're helping you, but when really they can be offsetting your poller and your Envision plan.
Okay, do we have any bonus material we can share?
We can show you the data gap analysis tool.
Data gap analysis.
It's pretty intriguing.
I like all of those words.
You do? All right. So when we go to that one, we actually go into the program file, SolarWinds Orion. So we don't have to go into the program data one that's hidden. And you look at the applications that are set up, and here is that tool. There's also a database response time too, which that actually tells you the response back and forth from where this is at. So if we open this, I always run these as an administrator because sometimes they won't actually run. So we were talking about this one on how the errors that we can look for, if there's the response time, the thresholds, the minimum polling completion. And what was your take?
My take was this was wonderful. Like, this is the type of analysis I want to see into the inner workings of the application that I'm actually trying to administer, in this case Orion. So when you get this information and you can just see, so here's starting the analysis of CPU load detail, and you get an idea of if there's low polling completion. Basically, you're looking for these errors, right? That's what we're looking for. Up in the upper left, it says error. This is just an easy way for me to go through and figure out, what is it that needs my attention, if anything, right away?
Definitely.
So you can select all of these, look for errors, and then figure out what the next steps are.
Exactly. And the main point that I like from this is that when you start seeing those gaps in data that's coming across there, and you feel like, where your polling completion is actually there, you're looking at your database tables, you need to see, okay, is it gaps? Is there something network related that's going on that we're missing things? Are there things that are, is the unreachable unreachable? Is that polar only? I need to make sure the database is okay. This is a way for you to be one-on-one with the database and say, how fast can you get me information? Because that's how fast we're reading it, right? And that's also how fast we're able to write it to come across there. So when you make these executions, you're actually seeing, like, is there anything that's wrong with these tables? An interface traffic detail table is a larger table size, right? So that's going to kind of give you a little bit more information that's going to come across there.
And so you can see here, we got no errors, right?
Right.
Basically, this is a tool's understanding, is the problem inside my database or not? Mm-hmm. And that's an important bucket to understand if you're going to be the administrator for Orion and you're in charge of database maintenance or just the database in general. This is number one question. This is the bucket. Mm-hmm. Is there a problem with the database or is there a problem somewhere else? And this data gap analysis tool is going to help you figure out if that problem is in the database.
And this is what I like with the interface traffic. When you do the detail itself, it'll tell you, because we put the statistical information that's in there in the database of what's its complete polling complete rate. And so you can see that on the side. It completes 99.9999% of the time, and this is the information that's been there since this has been within your database. Yeah. So if you start seeing this and it's saying 50, 40, 30, things like that, you need to start looking into the information. But play around with this tool. I mean, this is here and it's going to help you out so that you can kind of self-diagnose, self-help yourself, and kind of be one step ahead with what's going on within your database.
All right, thanks.